on this episode of Edge of the Web.
It's completely true. Like, people are looking for mission. They are looking for authenticity. They want vision. They want some greater meaning in their lives. Unless you're a toilet paper brand, then just bring me good toilet paper.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, alongside Tom Broadbeck, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
Welcome back. Hey, we're broadcasting from Edge Media Studios, located in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. My name is Aaron Sparks. I'm the CEO of Site Strategics as well as Edge Media Studios, and thank you for watching today. Hey, every week we actually bring you and listening. Some of the podcasters are going to be listening as well and not watching, but we want you in our community right here. Every week we bring you the latest trends in digital marketing and marketing influencers from around the planet. Go check out all of the must-see videos and audio over at edgeofthewebradio.com. Boy, I've been doing it for like 6 years, and I forgot the domain. Edgeofthewebradio.com. We're powered by Site Strategics. You're pioneers in the digital marketing realm, focusing on the agile marketing strategies and execution. If you want to know what that is and what it can mean for your ROI, give us a shout at sitestrategics.com. We got a chat right there. You can ping us, as well as check out what agile marketing is. We have a downloadable PDF right for your consumption, and get to know us, because we'd love to actually sit down and have a free hour of consultation with you. So with that, hey, again, I introduced myself. I'm Aaron Sparks. To my left, I don't have my co-pilot here, but he's actually behind the producer's booth. That's Tom Broadbeck.
Yeah, I'm behind the mic, but I'm here.
All right. Well, he's the director of digital media here at Site Strategics. And again, the reason why we do what we do is to be able to focus on education and demystifying the digital marketing space. And I'd like to introduce to you our guest who's doing that regularly for brands, demystifying the community building space. Carrie Melissa Jones. She's the founder and CEO of Gather Community Consulting. How are you doing today, Carrie?
I am wonderful. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I'm bouncing in my seat. I'm that good.
It's Thursday.
It is Thursday.
Thursdays are good days.
So, Carrie, in a brief sentence, we just want to introduce you to our guests. What do you do? What drives your passion for community building?
Oh, gosh. I feel like those are two separate questions.
Okay, fine. One question.
So I basically work with brands, typically for-profit organizations, but I've also worked with nonprofits and other kinds of organizations in order to help them build community strategies and actually execute on these strategies. So community is a buzzword we hear all the time today. You know, even Facebook changed their mission statement in 2018 to say, we're not just building a connected world, we're building relationships, we're building community now.
Yes,
so
they did.
I help people actually understand what they mean when they say that, because that's a lot of fluff if you're not actually doing the work to build a real community for the long term. So, yeah, I've previously worked with CMX, and we were the hub for community professionals, and we work with Facebook and Google and a variety of other companies to help them define their strategies and educate community managers on the ground about what this work means. And then what drives my passion for this is I feel that connection is what is actually going to keep us enjoying our lives, creating meaning in our lives. And, you know, I think many of us know what it feels like to be lonely. Many of us know what it feels like to feel really disconnected and feel that the world is kind of broken and not understanding each other. So I'm hoping to mend those broken pieces with some of the work that I do, which sounds very hippy-dippy. I am very aware of that, but you know, you've got to have a larger meaning in your work. I'm not just trying to drive revenue, although I do that too for companies. I'm trying to create meaning in people's lives. Ultimately.
Oh, that is fantastic. And I mean, community is going to keep us sane, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, there's actually, public health specialists say that there is a loneliness epidemic right now. The UK just actually, I don't know if it was elected or assigned a loneliness minister for the UK because it's such a problem. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that business and community do not have to be antithetical to one another. You can build community and build profits. So
very good. All right. Well, we're going to dig into that here in a bit. I'd like to go around the horn on some digital marketing news. You ready for it?
Yep.
All right. So let's take you around all things digital marketing news right now.
I was very excited to start my reportings.
This week's trending topics.
All right, so we want to make sure we give a shout out to our sponsor, CoSchedule. We're excited to have that sponsor this month to the show. CoSchedule is a #1 marketing calendar for everything that you need to be organized. No longer do you need complex spreadsheets, disconnected workflows, endless email threads. We hate those with a passion. So with CoSchedule, everything is organized in one place so you can create and collaborate on your projects, assign tasks, plus you can tie in social media directly into your marketing calendar. Most importantly, CoSchedule is a powerful analytics tool, and so you can see your team's process in one report. Consolidate all your entire marketing strategy into one tool set today with CoSchedule. We got an offer for all of the Edge of the Web listeners and watchers. The CEO of CoSchedule, Garrett Moon, is giving away 25 copies of his new book, The 10X Marketing Formula. All you need to do is go to CoSchedule.com/Edge of the Web, right there on the screen. And there you can download the first chapter for free and be entered into winning one of 25 books, right?
Sorry, you caught me off guard.
I did.
I'm directing.
I'm watching. So it's a great program. It's a great tool set, and we're certainly appreciative of their sponsorship. And with that, we want to make sure that our listeners help contribute to our sponsors as they jump on board. We really want to make sure that we're giving them all the love that we can. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you go to CoSchedule.com. They have a 14-day free trial, no credit card required to sign up. So go to that CoSchedule.com, sign up for that, download that first chapter of the book. We're having Garrett Moon on in 2 weeks, I want to say, not next week, but the week after to talk about the book. So you go download that first chapter. So we have, so you have some questions ready to go for when that show.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. All right, on to the news. Sorry for the gratuitous plug there, but we love these guys. From Search Engine Journal, from Roger Monti, 2018 State of Social Report was released. Success with live video. So let's go on over to this report here. As we look at it, give me a lay of the land here on this article, Tom.
Sorry, had to unmute my mic.
Sorry.
Can't talk. You can't talk and not have your mic unmuted. So, so this is a study done by Buffer, I want to say, and so they had some great stats here on on live video. So one of the first ones they have, live video hasn't caught on yet. Only 31% of marketers are using live video in their social. 69% have a no live video strategy. According to Facebook, live video is 6 times more effective at generating interactions than non-live videos. And Buffer said that indicates that of those who use live video, 60% reported that they found them effective, while only 10% found them ineffective. So there's a lot of great stats in here about. We use live video obviously every week for this show, and we have another show called Edge of Indie that we use for a more local show. But this is our main digital marketing based show, and so we use live video for both marketing purposes there. So we found it to be pretty effective.
Yeah, we have.
Far there, and then they towards the end of the article, they talked about the quality of live videos, how people are starting to expect better quality rather than just a person holding out a phone with their arm shaking.
No potato videos.
With no audio mics or anything, and poor quality, and can't understand what they're saying. So there's still room to improve, I guess, in this area. So we'll see where it goes in 2018.
There's all sorts of live video consumption, but the audience is getting savvier and savvier. They're wanting better quality. They're wanting better audio, most especially. But at the same time, this is community engagement, is it not? Whenever you're doing live video, live production, as much as you can do some polishing around the edges, but you're getting to your brand loyalists, right, Carrie?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And part of what's really important about this particular report, and I love Buffer, is that what people are saying is if you are consistent about your live video production, it's important. So it's not like a one-off thing. If you're just doing it one-off, it's not as effective as if you're doing a weekly live video like this, because you're continually giving an engagement point for your brand loyalists, in this case, to actually come together at the same time in the same place. So one of the key pieces of building a community is actually having a place for people to gather. And so engaging around a live video is one way to do that. And it feels really authentic. It's unedited. It's real life. So I think that's why it's really important. And also this is important because Facebook's algorithm obviously is changing, and we probably will talk about this a little bit more later.
Absolutely.
So people should be taking this very seriously. There's a huge opportunity here. Like Buffer says, there's only about 30% of brands who have a strategy. So it's just a wide open field of playtime that you can be having with live video that a lot of people are not taking advantage of right now.
Yeah, obviously we did the kind of the interview type of format here, but there's so many different ways. And we're seeing a lot of individual brands, individual people, which have their own brand, right, really using it and just going to town and creating a huge level of engagement just by allowing people into their lives regularly. It's surprising that the stats are so low from marketing agencies, but it is about a discipline, is it not? Is that you've got to keep on doing it, like you say.
Yeah, and I mean, it does feel more authentic and more real too. So the more you do it, the more you let people into your life or other employees' lives, or, there's many strategies you can take with Facebook Live video. But yeah, definitely be paying attention, and we'll see it even more in our news feeds in 2018 for sure.
you know it.
Yeah.
All right. So another article from Greg Starling over at Search Engine Land. Apple says HomePod is finally coming on February 9th, but can it compete? Apple also said that Siri is now used on more than 500 million devices. So, with a higher price of $349 and late entrants, Apple's definitely an underdog versus Amazon and Google. And Echo is just owning the space. There's evidence that more than 40 million smart speaker units are already in U.S. homes, the majority of which are Amazon Alexa devices and the Dots and all those. However, there are roughly about 125 million households in the U.S., so the market is far from saturated, and there's some indication of the demand for HomePod. So the question is, because we've been talking about this on the show regularly here over the last few weeks about that central home interaction with these smart speakers, and we talked to Dwayne Forrester, and we were all over the place inside of voice search and the ramification of voice search, and what's going to happen for the marketing channels and how narrow they're going to be. But do you see that HomePod are they too late to the game? Do you think that it's going to be worth the wait, or do you think this is going to be more of a shot in the dark for them, and they won't be taken seriously?
I'm just shaking my head for the listeners. I feel like I'm so disappointed in Apple because I was such a fangirl for so many years. And now those Samsung commercials where they're like, showing the disillusionment with Apple. I have this little dongle here.
Yep.
Stupid headphone jack.
Yeah. What the heck is that thing?
It's not caring about people. That's what it is.
Yeah. They really missed it, didn't they?
Yeah. So, I really hope that they can make this worth the investment for consumers, and they're actually thinking about what's actually user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
But I have my own thoughts about voice and connected homes and things. I'm very anti these things, but it's just my personal opinion.
I think I know where you're going there. In fact, in the article, some privacy concerns, right, have been raised about Google Home and Alexa devices always listening and recording our conversations in the background. They both have sought to assure the public that they're not eavesdropping, but we have a perfect example. My wife and I have a perfect example when we were actually talking about a pool cleaner for the kiddie pool in the backyard. And lo and behold, up on our Amazon search comes a nice little ad for exactly what I was looking for. At no point in time did I ask the smart speaker for anything. No, at no point in time did I even search online for something. It was listening to the conversations.
Absolutely.
And then
why are you buying a pool for your cat?
Because we don't let them in the house, so we might as well just have a nice little soiree in the backyard. Kiddie pool, not
Oh,
kitty.
kid.
Yeah.
Those kitties.
Yeah, exactly. But we did actually run an interesting experiment. We did something that we had some conversations around something that we would have never had conversations, and we used a gerbil cage. We were talking about our fictional hamster or gerbil to see whether or not we would trigger that ad. And you know what? It didn't come up. So we were wondering, okay, how much is it listening before it starts really moving some marketing in your direction?
The fact that you can't even answer that question is what deeply concerns me. Like, there's no transparency. To me, that's the antithesis of community building. So, I mean, that's a whole other topic. But if you don't even know what the machine you're putting in your home is tracking about you and remarketing to you, I think you should probably think about, that the revolution doesn't happen really suddenly. It happens very quietly. And all of a sudden you wake up and the machines are ruling.
Skynet. See, it always comes back to Skynet.
It's always back to Skynet.
I'm saying.
Yeah. So I will not put this in my home. Sorry, Apple.
In a different article that's not mentioned here, one guy's main concern with it was it's not really a search thing, but it only works with Apple Music. It doesn't work with Spotify or Pandora, which I thought was interesting. And Google Home and Alexa,
they all
both
play nice.
will work with those. So we'll see. At $350 a pop.
Nope.
We'll see.
I think that's a misfire there. All right, last article from Adage. Amazon has a plan to become profitable. Yeah, it's called advertising. So check this out.
So novel.
So from Ad Age here, and the article was written by Luke McGregor. Well, maybe that's the photo.
There was no author, so we're not giving credit to anybody.
So no, we won't. So as the article reads, for more than 2 decades, Jeff Bezos has famously sacrificed profit for growth, right? Persuading Wall Street that Amazon was best served pouring money into the logistical nuts and bolts that have turned his company into the Walmart of the web. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. But more recently, investors have been finding solace in the company's profitable cloud services business, which has helped offset losses in e-commerce. Still, for the past 5 years, Amazon's average profit margins have languished in about 1%. I can't believe that Amazon's at like a 1% profitability. That is nuts.
That's their game.
That is their game. That's the long game right there, brother.
Volume over margin.
Yep. Well, I mean, if you bet on Amazon Cloud Services, they actually pushed the shares past $1,300. Investors are actually now salivating about the ad business, which doesn't require big investments in new data centers or shipping hubs. On Monday, BMO Capital Markets upped its Amazon price target to $1,600 a share, based largely on the growth of its ad business. Some analysts are predicting Amazon will reach $2,000. Okay. That's some good meat right there. There really is. So, again, this entire engine has been about advertising, has it not? I mean, the logistics had to be there, but now it's just going to explode. And I mean, even getting in at these type of rates with Amazon, it's going to just take off because they've been laying the groundwork. Carrie, what do you think?
Yeah, I was actually just talking with a business owner who I'm friends with here in Seattle, and she's the founder of this company called Good Hangups, and she was on Shark Tank, and she basically was saying that it's really important to her to be on Amazon because people are already, when they're going to Amazon, they're not going to browse. Right. They're going to buy. Mm-hmm. So if you're selling ads on a space where people are primed to buy, then it's going to be successful. So I do think that this is a smart move for them. It's also not that novel or exciting. And it also concerns me from a consumer standpoint of how obvious is it going to be when I'm looking at something that is pay to play versus this is actually the best product for me. And I think we're also going to see in the next, decade or so, people will continue to use the Amazon and will continue to get more savvy about what they buy locally and what they buy from, smaller makers and what actually is good for the world to consume. So we'll see.
There's a heck of a lot of what ifs there. Yeah. And monetizing the heck out of something that, there's good consumer engagement, but you still don't have the community inside of Amazon. No. And as soon as you can alienate those members very, very easily if they start seeing their confidence in those products erode and overtly, if it turns into an overt advertising engine, you're going to see a heck of a lot of pushback. And there's going to be other platforms that come alongside and try to eke out of that Amazon crush that's out there, right?
Well, yeah, and it's also bad for businesses on Amazon because what it does is it like deeply commoditizes all commodities. So like just speaking about the only way you can compete on Amazon in a lot of ways is through price. And so it's just driving down the value of items that manufacturers are making. So that's why actually community is really, really deeply important because you can't commoditize community. You can't necessarily drive down the price of community. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's got its buoyancy, but at the same time, community votes on where they're going to be and what they're going to invest their time in. And brands like Amazon and Walmart is obviously doing a incredible job trying to get their platform. It won't ever eclipse Amazon, but you're going to see you are seeing an adoption and rejection of platforms that have just overshot and monetized their way to the grave. So be careful, Amazon. But we certainly wish you the best to be profitable. But
I live in Seattle, so I basically live inside of Amazon.
You get a lot of drones coming around.
No, yes, there are.
All right. Well, what is not monetized and commoditized is our newsletter. So we certainly implore our listeners and our watchers regularly to join our newsletter free of charge. We'll never use your email at all except for sending you great nuggets of digital news gold. So if you want to join, you can text with your smartphone right now to the number 22828 with the word Edge Talk, and you can sign up right there. You can go over to Edge of the Web Radio and join the newsletter right there at the header of the web page. Basically, what we're sending is a synopsis of the last show we did, who we're going to be talking to in the next week, as well as the news articles that we've sent and discussed. All the links from the show. So basically, it's a couriered show notes page straight to your inbox. Who wouldn't love that? Who wouldn't love that?
Yeah, and we're including some bonus video. So after the show, if we have any extra points or tips that we want to bring on that we didn't get on the show, we'll include that in the newsletter. So sign up for that newsletter for that bonus footage.
Very cool. Very cool. And it's not like B-roll. It's not like embarrassing footage or anything like that, right?
No, just good, clean fun.
All right. So be sure to do that. And we love our newsletter audience, and we certainly appreciate any comments and communication. Follow all the featured trending topics at edgeofthewebradio.com. So let's deep dive with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Carrie Melissa Jones, founder and CEO of Gather Community Consulting.
Oh, Carrie, we introduced you with a deep voice guy. How about that?
I love that. Can I get one of those for every talk that I give ever?
I think everybody asks that. We really need to send this guy out and sell ringtones or something. Well, Carrie Melissa Jones, let me introduce you to our audience. She's the founder and CEO of Gather Community Consulting, where she consults with brands to build new communities, audit existing communities, and provide training for brands on how to lead their communities. And that's a very important feature right there. In 2016, Carrie was named by Salesforce as one of the 3 top experts to follow in community management, and her writing has appeared in Venture Beat, Convince and Convert, we love Jay Bear stuff, and The Next Web, all great purveyors of good information. Well, Carrie, now it's your turn. I want you to meet our audience. Give us your backstory, your history of where you hail from.
Well, so I've been building community online for the last 15 years, or probably a little bit more than that, actually. I discovered forums when I was pretty young. I was a awkward teenager and looking for how does this internet thing work? And also I'm really socially awkward in high school and I want more friends. So I was really into these music forums when I was young. And that's how I first discovered the power of the internet after AOL chat rooms and all that stuff. And realized that I can not only talk to people online, but these can become my friends and my confidants, and that this can make me feel less uncomfortable and awkward. So that's how I got my start. And then I, went to school, studied English and communications, and actually found myself, I just kind of fell into a community role, which if you ask a lot of community managers, that's how they get started, is they don't mean to become community managers. And that was definitely the case for me. I went and worked for Chegg.com, which is a textbook rental company that also does digital services. And I built out a community for academic experts there. And then I did that again for another tech company in San Francisco. And then I built up CMX Media with my business partner, David Spinks, who is also a brilliant mind in community management. So I did that for the last 3.5 years. And now I'm just kind of on my own, taking all the things I've learned over the last 15 years and, have my own methodologies and frameworks, and just really love training, especially smaller businesses, but also large businesses who are for the first time making investments in community strategy, teaching them like what this actually means, and doing it the right way the first time, because you make a lot of mistakes usually when you build it and you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
And you're not attending to it. So for our audience, who's actually part of our community and the Edge of the Web community, give us kind of the synopsis. We have not on this show really dove into community building, and it's very interesting. Give us the 101 of what it is and why it's so important to brands in 2018.
So I think that community, the word, is a little vague for brands. And so I actually insist on using the term brand community. And that's one of the big defining things that I talk about in my work, is that this is different from building a community outside of working for a brand. Everybody is part of communities. Like it's a social imperative. It's a human imperative to be part of a community, but a brand community specifically contains members who can then participate in ongoing shared experiences alongside your brand. And the brand is the one leading that, but they are also training others in that community to be leaders themselves. So if you think about like a meetup program, or look at Airbnb and their super host community, right? You've got all these hosts all around the world who are essentially beacons of community themselves that Airbnb has trained and then also continues to provide resources for, so that they can have a completely decentralized platform, and so that the community stays safe, provides value, and is as amazing as Airbnb is. They've also done a lot of political action with their community, and they've changed laws and lobbied against extremely powerful lobbying forces like landlords and property owners. So, yeah.
That's amazing, and it can't be forced. It has to be natural, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can certainly be a steward, but it's got to make sense as well. I mean, you got the Red Bull community. You've got all these different brands that are lifestyle connections and services. I mean, but you can't force something that won't take. It has to make sense to the user, right?
Yeah, and I've seen many brands try to force it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at failed, like Coca-Cola has tried several times now, but they invested in a platform called, I think it was called groups.xyz, or Places, that's what it was called. And they had seen Lady Gaga do her Little Monsters community on this platform. And they said, well, we're Coca-Cola, we'll do the same thing Lady Gaga is doing. It's like, well, it turns out like Lady Gaga is starting a movement
Right.
for empowerment of people and owning their voices and things like that. But Coca-Cola, are you starting a movement here? I'm not totally sure. And it felt really unnecessary. So what I see a lot of times is, again, that community is a buzzword, and brands will come and say, we've heard people saying we need a community, so let's build one. And I staunchly, like, that is not the time to build community. You need to get to know these prospective members, get to know your customers. And then if you find a common pain point, connecting with others would help them solve. So in your case, like, if there's a bunch of marketers and they all are trying to figure out Facebook's algorithm, right? And they don't have a place to do that. Or maybe they do, but it's just, there's shortcomings in all the different spaces where they could learn about those things. Then you start a community and you have a specific mission, a specific vision for what you're creating. And then you're actually adding value, and you're not just adding to the noise. because especially with Facebook groups growing as they are right now, there's a lot of noise happening.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen entrepreneurs closing their Facebook groups because they're like, well, we didn't realize how much work this was going to be and it's not working. Well, there's a lot of prep work that they did not do during the discovery phase that's generally what I help people do, is help them understand if this is even a smart investment or not. Yeah.
So you hinted upon something, getting to know your consumer. I mean, this is not always just a B2C type of relationship, but let's just stay there for a second. Is that immediately a light bulb went in my head, and I've been saying this for a number of years about the buyer's journey and understanding where your consumer is in their different points of awareness of a problem, all the way through picking you as the provider of their pain relief, for lack of a better word, right? So is that part of the prep work that you have to do whenever you're developing a good, authentic community?
Yes.
You have to.
You can have some assumptions going in to like what kind of a community might be valuable, but you've got to do the member research. And that's the number one thing that most of the clients that I work with, they don't really want to do it themselves.
Right.
And actually a lot of times they shouldn't do it themselves because they're too in it. And so you've got to do interviews with people. Sometimes you'll do a survey, although I think surveys are somewhat useless. You have to look at the data objectively and not with all kinds of assumptions. Looking at where are people saying they're happy now? Where are they saying they're unhappy in their journey? And how can you fix that problem? So there's buyer journeys in marketing and in sales and this stuff like that. And at CMX, actually, I worked with David to develop a community member journey. So just like there's a journey for your buyers, there's a journey inside of the community as well. As somebody, from finding out about the community to actually joining it, what does that feel like for them? Is this actually going to be a valuable place is going to be the number one question on their minds. So you have to answer that in that journey. And then all the way into you've been a member now for 3 to 5 years to say 20 years. What does that look like? Generally, somebody should have worked their way up in levels of commitment and should be a leader by that point. Not always, but that's the ideal situation. And that creates a long lasting community so that your brand is not always the one leading, but rather your elders, quote unquote, are the ones leading your efforts.
And you've got to reinforce them, and you got to find out what makes them tick, and try to you don't templatize, but you start putting data points together. Everything comes from reading your audience and interpreting the data, not coming in with a predisposition. That's one of the key things about just going through the buyer's journey is, and we see so many companies that think they know their consumer. They think they know exactly what makes them tick. And you've got to have an open mind. You've got to explore the nuances of. So, I mean, do you also lead with focus groups and this, that, and the other to be able to capture that information?
Yeah. So I do some of that member research, and you can't go in. You can go in with hypotheses, but you need to know that they're going to change. And there's a little bit of arrogance in thinking that you know everything about your customers that you could possibly need to know. And one of the things we talk about in community manager circles is ego suspension and needing to suspend your ego in order to connect with people. And that all communities are not, especially brand communities, are not about your products and services. They never should be about your products and services. They should be about your mission and vision as a company or an organization. And so that requires you to not have an ego about your products and services. Maybe they're not the best ones for everybody. That's possible. I know, it's crazy.
Don't call their babies ugly. Come on. That's awesome.
You can't be all things to all people. That is a recipe for disaster on both sides of the equation. Let's be real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's a real reality check that companies may or may not be ready for. But the consumers and the community that's potentially forming out there, even outside the participation of the brand. We see community because of reviews, and we see participation prior to a community build. You see where they are, right, in their disparate spaces, talking about a brand. That's what brand buzz is all about. But if you're not ready to really have a full accountability of, okay, does our product match up We had a discussion with one of our clients that one of their they have a SaaS platform, and they were absolutely authentic as they were comparing their platform to another competitor's. They were looking at it going, yeah, these things aren't not nearly as good as the other platform, and that's so appreciated in the marketplace because it's a rarity.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll also say that if you're not ready to build your own community yet, that it's totally a viable strategy to go and participate in others, as long as you're like giving to those communities and not just spewing promo and not actually providing value.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So sometimes that is my recommendation is don't build your own community yet. Go find the other leaders and help them do what they're already doing. Don't just try to create more noise.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about building a community. Where should a brand start with building a community? Should it be online? Should it be in person at meetups? How do they go about doing that?
So that very much depends, although I hate that answer. I'll say that I'll start with it depends. And it depends based on like what patterns are you seeing already? How busy are these people? Like, are your customers, right?
Okay.
Like if you're working with an example I've been thinking about recently is physicians or doctors. Like they're very busy people, probably not going to participate a ton in a forum, right? Or your Facebook group. But if you can provide them an extremely valuable dinner series offline, that might be worthwhile for them. So you're not going to know if you should start online or online until you do that research. Or in the lean methodology, just try things with very little, like don't put in a ton of effort and energy. At CMX, actually, one of the things that I did was I launched a paid community in a day. I didn't actually have anything built yet. I just said, like, here's the landing page for an offering that will be here. Do you trust us? And we sold out.
Oh, wow.
In a week. And and I was like, okay, well, people actually put their credit cards down. And so I should build this space now. And so we did. That's what we diverted our resources around because of that lean test. You can be doing that as opposed to like sitting down and doing the interviews. But either way, you need to be curious and willing to be flexible and change in your approach. So it depends. That's my answer. Still.
It depends.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We get that a lot. Just kidding. So, okay. All right. I'm not going to take it depends on this question. How do you measure success of a community?
That's a great question.
You can't go to depends.
I'm not going to it depends. Believe me. So at CMX, we developed a model called the space model. And this is like one of our like favorite models because that is always the question is how do you measure this? So essentially what the space model does is it breaks apart the different values that a community can drive for a brand into 5 pieces. So the first one is support. So a lot of companies will build a support community. Apple has one. They have a Apple support forums and their MVPs answer customer questions, not a Apple internal employee. So there you would measure support metrics like deflection of calls or, how quickly are people getting responses? How happy are they with the response? Things like that. Then you've got your product communities. That's the P in space. And these are usually around innovation and new ideas. Dell Idea Storm is one of the oldest examples of this where Starbucks had a idea community as well. So you're measuring, how many ideas are we getting from this community? How much money is that saving us or making us? Dell computed that each idea or something like that was worth like $50,000 to Dell. So that's how you measure success in an innovation or a product community. Also, there's product feedback communities and tools like user voice, things like that, where you can be having open feedback channels. So that's that kind of a community. Then you've got acquisition communities. And this is probably generally what you're talking about, which are like marketing communities. So Influitive is a big platform for communities like this, where people can go on and become your ambassadors formally, and they get badges and swag.
Kind of gamify the thing.
Yeah, gamify it, but don't use extrinsic. You shouldn't be using extrinsic motivators to build a community, which is a whole other topic.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah. You should not do it because that will not be long lasting. And I actually had to lead a huge effort at Chegg to move us off of an extrinsic reward system, which were gift cards, into actually motivating people around learning and teaching students and things like that. Pain.
No, you can point people. You can point people in an entirely other direction, and it completely breaks the trust of the brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And prior to this, we were talking about Daniel Pink's Drive, that book. I highly recommend it.
Yep.
And extrinsic motivators kill motivation. So if you're supposed to be building a community around like meaning and value in people's lives, and if you're like, okay, as soon as you join our community, you get a t-shirt. So that's why you should join. Then people, they're not going to participate. It kills motivation. Now I forget what I was talking about. Oh, I was talking about the space model.
Yeah. No worries.
So in communities like that, in ambassador communities, like you've got your Lululemon as an example, they have Lululemon ambassador, the ambassador program. There are a lot of communities like that. You'd measure marketing impact. What is the cost per acquisition? How many referrals are they driving? Things like that would actually help you measure marketing metrics that you look at normally. And then you've got your content communities. So this includes two-sided marketplaces like Airbnb and that's like the only example that's coming to my head right now. Oh, Yelp, things like that, where the supply side of the marketplace actually is the company's business. So building that community and making it successful makes the business successful. So if Airbnb's superhost community grows, their business grows. So you would measure success by measuring the health of that business.
Because it's intrinsically tied to growth. Right.
Yeah. It's like if we're able to get this many bookings through and we have like a success rate in our community of 100%, like what does that mean for our revenue? Right. Like, So, and then you've got your engagement communities. So this includes internal communities. There's like SAP has had an internal community for a long time.
American Express.
Yeah, with employees. So that's you're measuring HR, you're measuring retention, you're measuring churn, things like that. And then with external engagement communities, you're typically like Sephora has one, which is like best in class. It's loyalty. It's a loyalty program tied to a community. So if you've ever seen their app, it's the Beauty Insider community. It's fantastic. And there's like forums inside of there. So if I just bought an eyeshadow and I don't know what to do with it, I can go on there and like post a photo of the eyeshadow in my eye and somebody will give me tips, like a random person from the internet.
Oh, wow.
Give me tips on like how to wear this eyeshadow. And that's where like the engagement is tied to sales. So Sephora, I forget the exact number, but it's something like people who are active in that community spend 4 times or 10 times more in stores than those who are not active in the community. So whether that's like, whether it's actual causation or correlation to them doesn't really matter. They're serving their most valuable customers, and that's what matters. So there you're measuring like how much are these members actually spending outside of the community because we've given them a space to engage.
And marketers, by and large, and brands have to have metrics, but it's also quite subjective to the motivation and what they're trying to create in that space, right? So I love the model, but the space model. But you do have to not be so linear from a transaction standpoint to actually understand how your community is working with you. And so how does a brand understand not only engagement? Global. I mean, how can they get their community to engage, and how do they know whenever they're off mark? Now, I know there's a heck of a lot of depends concepts here too.
Yeah.
But because if we were looking at the actual strategies, that'd be one thing, and then you can actually hypothesize how you'd understand that. But generally, what does a brand need to do to pay attention to whatever the metric is? This is a new discipline? Is this a new set of personnel inside of their organization that are not just meerkatting up, but they're actually heavily invested in these type of orientations? I mean, how do they go about finding all this? That's a long-winded question, wasn't it?
Meerkatting. I'm just imagining all these community managers like sitting up with people. Like I've been here all along. So like you said, there's a lot of it depends in the question. I think I'm understanding what you're asking, which like who's running these organizations,
right? And more importantly, not who's. I mean, because the company has to invest in resources if they're going to take it seriously, right? You just can't topically say, "Hey, we're going to create a community," and not be engaged with it. But how can they engage and get their community to engage, and what can brands pay attention to make sure that they don't fall off mark, I guess is the best way I can describe that.
Yeah. So how can they get their community to engage is, again, a whole lot of it depends. And that is figured out during the discovery phase, right? So depending on what your community is based around, like what are you actually building around, then you can create content and programming that will actually fuel giving that value to people. So that's very theoretical, but I realized what I just said. So I'm trying to think of an example. So say I am say I'm a yoga teacher. Okay, just to give a small business example. I'm a yoga teacher and I want to branch into building a community for women in tech who do yoga. And so what I would need to do to keep those people engaged is figure out what topics are actually going to help those women actually show up for class and participate in online programs. And so you create just like you would a marketing plan, quite honestly, like you have a content calendar for your community. So say you're building it in a Facebook group, you would have, here's what we post on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, with enough room to be spontaneous about it. And you would also need to develop your voice inside that community. So any content that you do have needs to tie back into, like, say in this yoga community, your voice is like spunky and really excited and authentic. So all the programming would need to go back to like you being that person as the community manager. And inspiring that in others. So, what I've seen work in a lot of Facebook groups, for instance, is like, post your photos of, one thing you accomplished this week or something like that. And so like everybody will participate in that thread, for instance. And if you're falling off the mark, the way you would tell that is with a community health dashboard. So you create that depending on like, you look at, here are our members, here's the engagement rates this week. Are you seeing them like ratchet up? Are you seeing them fall off? You have to keep a pulse on that. And I recommend doing it at least once a week. If not more often, if you're first starting, just to see like, okay, this posted really well. Let's do that again, iterate around that. Or like, this did not do well. Like, don't ever do that ever again. But community is a lot of trial and error as well. So it is about that, like iterate quickly and then like move as fast as you can to just be trying new things. It reminds me a lot, like I'm building a side business too. And every step I take is like, it's like, oh, this is work and this is work and this is work. And I'm making some missteps, even on like, say I'm working on the Instagram for it. Like, I'm like, this post did not work, but I put it out there and it's important that I did that because I learned. And that's what building a community is like too. It's putting something out there. And then if it's not resonating, learning from that, like doing something differently next time.
Got it.
And then building from there. And communities take time. A lot of people want them to be like an overnight success. And they just, unless you are already a community beacon yourself, they're not an overnight thing. It's going to take years sometimes.
Oh, boy. See, and brands don't want to know that. I mean, that's the bitter truth that you're offering here.
I know. And if they don't invest in it, they might not exist in the next decade or two. So they might as well start now.
Ouch.
It's completely true. Like, people are looking for mission. They are looking for authenticity. They want vision. They want some greater meaning in their lives. Unless you're a toilet paper brand, then just bring me good toilet paper. Like, but even then, like, I think people are waking up to like, how is this manufactured? Is it manufactured ethically? Who is suffering from me buying this brand versus this one?
The ramifications and the what if concepts that a brand has to do now, just to see. I mean, it never used to be this way. Of how is this brand going to be? How is this product going to be accepted with all of the social mores and all of the vetting that you'll only see once you actually get the product out into market. I mean, it's almost like going through a pharmaceutical drug review by the government. You literally have to try to figure out how this product's going to play in the community before it gets there.
Yeah. It's really hard.
Yikes.
And the thing that I'm building actually is a physical product. I'm making dog wear for dogs.
Not to be confused with dog bling, right?
Yeah. No, it's not dog bling. This is
you.
like very utilitarian. It's for dogs with allergies. And it's the physical product creation process, and I can't test it with the market until I have a prototype, and I can't get the prototype until I've done all this pre-work. So it's like I'm building a thing. I don't know how it's going to resonate with the community that I've been building, but I am still building that community. I'm doing that work today, even though I don't have a product. And if you're pre-launch, I think that's really, really important that you build it with that in mind, as opposed to doing it afterwards. Don't build a thing and then look for the community. Look for the community and then build a thing that serves that community.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a thought right there, is that if you're actually listening to consumers as opposed to moving a product and then trying to figure out how they relate to it afterwards. This could certainly go on for any, because I'm very interested in it's ubiquitous, but at the same time, we know it because we natively are in the digital space. We know absolutely everything that you're talking about, and we know the brands that are succeeding. We know the brands that are also failing. So can you give us a quick pinpointing a couple, and we can protect the names to protect the brands, but have you seen some failures, and what did you ascribe the failure to? Pardon me.
Yeah. I'm fine naming brands because these are not my clients.
Go for it.
So Coca-Cola, I gave that example, and that's because they made the entire community about Coca-Cola. That's why they failed. And you've also got another example is Lego, which actually is like one of the greatest online communities of all time and continues to be. But they shut their doors of their original community, I think about a year ago, and they didn't explain to anybody why. And so it looked like a failure from the outside. It was like, oh, this idea that's been going on, or this, it was an ideas community for adult Lego players. And they got tons of ideas for new Lego products from it. It just shut down and they didn't tell anybody. And so a few months later, they ended up launching as something called Lego Life. And it's a mobile first platform for kids to play with and share their Lego creations and build on like with Legos online. And so to me, that wasn't necessarily a failure, but it was an example of communities evolve, they change, and you have to be okay with that change because things change. Like that's just how it works. And actually having a pulse on the community, and Lego was really smart. They got out in front of it and they shifted their strategy around it. Instead of waiting for it to actually fail, they proactively flipped it. So I don't know if that's a failure per se. I actually think it's a great success.
They accomplished their mission. They bobbled on the communication side of things a bit.
Yeah, I think it left a lot of people just like scratching their heads. But yeah. And then Starbucks also, like I said, used to have an ideas community. I don't know what happened there. Again, didn't really communicate it. But it was one of the first ideas communities. And they got all kinds of, I think that's where they got the unicorn drink idea from. That's from the community.
They're to blame.
Yeah. I never had it. So,
and you're in Seattle. So, and you're a community trainer. So you could be to blame. All right. Keep on going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I gave a talk at Seattle Interactive Conference. It was like a big tech conference here. And actually somebody from Starbucks is in the audience. So I was like, are you listening? Like, but yeah, so they actually flipped it into, it's like a Google form now. They changed the whole community that they had. I think there was a lot of infighting and conflict, which is often a problem. You see it on Reddit a lot. Yeah. There was a lot of conflict and they probably didn't have the resources to deal with it. But now it's just a one-way communication Google form, which is not a community. A feedback form and a survey, not a community. It's got to be multi-directional. Communities are communities because not only are you influencing people, but people are able to influence you in return. So, yeah. Very
good. Very good. Well, I did want to jump into a quick discussion about the Facebook algorithm. We tied into it at the news, but you may want to be able to share some light on this. What impact would the new Facebook algorithm have on brands trying to build community within Facebook?
Yeah. So I mentioned this like almost right after it happened. And then this last week, DigiDay actually published a piece about how agencies are now quickly moving to recommend to their clients that they build Facebook groups. So my point about the major algorithm changes is that Facebook is starting to, I don't know if it's punish is the right word, but they won't be showing in the feed as much, obviously, like page content. But what they will be prioritizing is local news, live video, like we talked about earlier, and group content where you're actually having deep conversations with people. So Facebook has I attended Facebook's Community Summit this year. It was the very first time Mark Zuckerberg gathered, I think it was like 300 different group admins in Chicago. And some of them had groups of over 1 million users. And so they are investing resources in training these people and in making sure that these groups are valuable. So you better believe that the group content is going to be showing up in people's feeds.
Mm-hmm.
So the Digiday piece was really important because obviously agencies are jumping all over like, yeah, we'll build your Facebook group for you. We'll make it work. That is really great in some ways and really scary in others, because it could mean that all the noise from brands drowns out the whole purpose of groups, which is to gather around common purposes and common missions and to create authentic spaces with distributed leadership. So I just really worry that these groups will launch and then all of a sudden it'll be just like LinkedIn groups where it's self-promo everywhere you go. So the way that you lead those groups is very different than how you would manage a Facebook page. And I hope people are paying attention to that.
Absolutely.
And if they need help with it, I'm here.
Carrie's here to solve your woes. Yeah, Tom.
Yeah. So should brands be building the group within the page, or should they like within
That's
a page?
Right? Yeah. So last summer, Facebook launched groups for pages. So how that works essentially is once you have a Facebook page, you can actually create a group and that group is then linked to the page. Mm-hmm. So people can see it really easily. It's obviously an easy way to market the group and get people in the door. And now that they're in the door, there's something called linked groups. So you can create within your Facebook group, it's actually at the very top of the group. There's the main banner of like, here's the group image. And then right below that is linked groups. So you can have several groups. Say you're an example that I'm thinking of is a group for women in business, and they have like a women in business group in Seattle and one in Dallas and one in New York City. And so you can link multiple groups. So if you wanted to do by topic or by location or by specific, say you're an association and you wanted to do like specific stages in people's careers, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
you could do that. And Facebook they're rolling out new functionality inside of groups on a consistent basis. And I've seen it change a lot.
Wow.
The summit was in June and they rolled out 3 new features there, and I've just been seeing them do more and more and more over the last couple months. So yeah.
Well, they're moving, and companies have to capitalize on this if they're going to connect to the Facebook audience, right?
Yeah, but you've got to do it in an authentic, transparent, and non-promotional way, which is really hard for brands. So they were like, why are you doing this? It's like an indirect sell, but the value of it is that you're creating a space where people can come together and talk about all kinds of things. So they come to associate your brand with that like safe space. It should be a safe space if you're moderating it well and you're leading it well. So they associate your brand with helping them. Not just selling to them. So
that's critically that's key, because you got to be a consumer advocate before consumers collectively will trust your brand. I mean, you just can't hit them over the head with buy now. And
trust is key to all of this, all of it. And brands have frankly broken consumer trust a lot. So here we are.
Oh, and they didn't know how to move. I mean, the consumers themselves are moving, and a good deal more fickle towards any brands that 10 years ago, you'd have a trust and loyalty base. Mm-hmm. You've got a heck of a lot of challengers in whatever vertical market. But on top of that, the consumer is much more, they're valuing their time more, and they're also valuing the additional concepts of mission, of North Star, of organizations, because they want to align. There's the Simon Sinek golden circle right there, right?
Yeah, I refer to that all the time.
It's that is where marketing needs to go. That's where brands need to check themselves. Are they actually communicating their why? Do they have their why actually in front of them, in front of the consumers, right?
A lot don't.
A lot don't. Well, Carrie, we really appreciate all the time that you've been able to provide us today. Can I run through a couple last questions about what you see in the industry? Can you tell me what bugs you right now about the industry that you're in?
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to this idea of like quickly launching Facebook groups and things like that. There is such a focus on operations and tactics in the community industry right now. And what we really need to be focusing on is developing leadership skills, conflict management, and also conflict avoidance, or not avoidance, but creating conflict resistant cultures in our communities. It requires a lot of deep work that businesses are not equipped to do on their own right now. And so, I hope that we can focus less on the operations and more on the heart of all this and the meaning that we're creating people's lives, because that's actually why we're doing what we're doing in business, isn't it?
Yep.
Right? I hope so.
You hope so. All right. Well,
Yeah.
Conversely, as opposed to what bugs you in the industry, what excites you about the industry by and large?
Yeah, I mean, seeing it being taken really seriously has
Yeah.
been very exciting. So when I first started managing forums and I was very young and I had no idea what I was doing, I did not have any idea that it was going to be a job later down the line. And I actually just talked with a client, and he said that he had forwarded his daughter, who was about to go to college, an article I wrote about how to become a community manager. And because she had asked, she's like, "Dad, like, how do I become a community manager one day?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I can help you."
Oh
So that is really heartening because, I mean, and this is probably true of like marketing, several decades ago. It wasn't like a really clear career. And as people are taking community more seriously, it's becoming a career, and it's a career that is sustainable and has, I think it can actually save the world from the brokenness that we're looking at right now. So I'm really excited about the impact that we can have as community managers.
People need to take it seriously, and they have to realize what is really needed, and social has connected us, but has also pushed us away. There's so much, and social is a very easy way to grow. I should say easy. I'll use that back away from that. It's an accessible area for community to reemerge, but at the same time, we've got to be intent on being authentic, right? And brands, as well as people that engage in the community, the members of the community, they have to know that they can't just burn bridges. They can't just flame in the space. And there needs to be some maturation, because there are so many arguments. There are so many, and with the filter that's off right now, we need to gain a little bit of poise as we interact and as we discuss things, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I think that a lot of people are reacting not so great on the internet. Like, my own dad will get in fights on his John Muir Trail Facebook group that he's part of for these backpackers. And he's the kindest person I've ever met in real life. And then he's like being sarcastic and to people on the internet. And I think it does require us to kind of hold ourselves to a little bit higher of a standard and realize that we're talking to human beings, and that really what we all need in our lives is to be treated with kindness, to be appreciated, to be seen. And that's actually what we can give to each other, even on the internet. So
I love it. That's a soundbite right there. So tell us about Southern Pies and Sweets.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So I think this was like about 8 or 9 years ago. I actually had a pie shop out of my kitchen in San Francisco, not at all related to community building. Although I did do a speakeasy in the basement of the apartment that I lived in. We opened up the garage, and my roommate was a jazz singer, and we sold contraband pies out of the basement, and they were all Southern pies because my family is Southern, and it was a great time. Great time to be alive.
Wow, contraband sweet pies.
I think the next question is, what's your favorite pie?
I like chocolate chess pie, but I'm also a fan of bourbon apple. That's also a really good one.
Ooh,
it's hard for me to pick.
What's chocolate chess?
I can't pick.
What's chocolate chess? I've never heard
chocolate
of
chess. Chess pie is a very Southern pie, and it's basically just butter and sugar, period.
Okay.
In a
two best ingredients.
Yeah. And so you just add chocolate to that, and you have a chocolate chess pie. It's like just
so
pure,
it's like sugar cream pie,
brownie.
but chocolate.
Yeah, it's like eating a brownie in a pie.
Ooh, there we are.
Yeah, I would put a salted caramel topping on it. It was really good.
I am going to have some chocolate chess cake after the show.
Oh, wow. That if you got a sweet tooth, got to do that. Hey, Carrie, can we promote anything for you on the show?
Just my consulting is at gathercommunityconsulting.com, and I would welcome your questions. You can schedule a free consultation with me through my website. I'm just really excited to talk to people about these issues because this is what I'm deeply passionate about. And
No,
it's
it
hard
shows. And there's not many like you out there that actually are. I mean, the combination of the contraband pies as well as a community gatherer. But I think you're blazing a trail, and this is absolutely a serious vocation, and you're helping brands really figure out what their responsibility is, not just what their goal is. They got a responsibility to the brand. To the brand loyalists that are already there, you know, you got to open up communication. You got to be able to be authentic and connect. You can follow Carrie on Twitter at CaremJO, on Facebook at Carrie Melissa Jones, LinkedIn Carrie M Jones, and Instagram at Carrie_Melissa. Carrie, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed kind of meandering through our conversation here. You're doing a great job, and we'll certainly support you on all the socials and get your story up because you are absolutely invaluable right now, and we need more and more of you out there. So if anybody's inspired by what Carrie's doing, give her a shout. I'm sure she'll give some guidance to you along the way.
Yeah. And there's other people out there who do what I do too. And I'm happy to point you in the right direction. So I'm out here.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to Edge of the Web. Thank you so much, Carrie, for your time today. Special thank you to all the colleagues at Site Strategics for this production on a regular basis, and especially our guest, Carrie Melissa Jones. Make sure that you see all the must-see videos and all the insider information at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Who's up next week, Tom?
Next week, we've tracked down Mitch Joel.
Oh, we got Mitch Joel coming in the house.
Host of the 6 Pixels of Separation podcast.
Yeah.
And so it should be a good conversation next week.
That's great. All right, so stay tuned for for 6 Pixels next week, and certainly join the newsletter. Make sure that you review and rate the podcast if you would. We need that type of support from our listeners, and give us some feedback. Who should we be talking to? Go over to the website and give us a shout because we'd love to find out more and more from our listeners. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll be next week. Do not be here next week. Do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. Take care. Bye-bye.